All right, so let me ask you about the speed-up rules. How difficult do you think it'll be for pitchers? Now, there's nothing intrinsically in there about pitchers other than relievers have to warm up quickly. They left out because we had Jason Stark on earlier. The Players Association would not agree to the clock between pitches, like 12, 15 seconds. Would that be tough for pitchers to adapt to?
You know, they did it in the Arizona Fall League a little bit, and I think it was fairly seamless. But, you know, I like the idea that they're not going to go to the clock right away. I think the fact that you've got to keep the hitters in the box longer, similar to what we saw 30 years ago where batters sort of kept 1 foot in the box. You could step with 1 foot out and get signs at third base. I think that will go a long way to speed up the pace of play. I think in between innings, if you're ready to throw the first pitch the minute the television coverage comes back, that will help. But certainly we've seen the hitters that step out of the box every pitch, that readjust their gloves, that go through a little superstitious routine. And that's something we didn't see 30 years ago when the time of the game was a lot less. So certainly keeping 1 foot in the box, pitchers on the mound ready to throw the ball, I think that speeds up the pace of play, really, in terms of just the crispness of the game. I think you can play a much crisper game with those two elements. Pitchers on the mound ready to throw the ball and batters stay in the box ready to hit.
You know, David, when we see a pitcher like a Steve Traxel who just is so slow and deliberate, is that just their style, or is there a confidence issue where maybe they just don't feel well enough to pitch with a rhythm? And it just becomes an excuse to say, well, I'm slow. Or maybe it's a confidence issue, or maybe they don't trust their stuff right away to get into that pace.
Yeah, those are all great points, Don. And I think you're exactly right. I think sometimes pitchers get caught up in the type of pitch they're going to throw, you know, and shaking off signals from their catcher and really delaying the rhythm of the game that way. And especially when runners get on base. And when runners get on base that can steal bases, if you're facing the Kansas City Royals and some of those base runners get on base, the game's going to naturally slow down anyway because you're going to throw over to first. You're going to have to vary your delivery. You're going to have to give your catcher a chance to try to throw them out when they do try to steal. So that's always been the case with the game. I think going back as long as the game's been around is when there's been on base, especially later in the games, the pace of play is going to slow down. But I think generally speaking, you know, with a few exceptions like a Traxel or somebody like that, I think it will help. It will sort of catch on, and the umpires will enforce the rules, and hitters will have to stay in the box, and pitchers eventually are going to have to throw the ball a lot quicker than they do now.
We're talking to former Cy Young Award winner David Cohn of the Yes Network. David, Don and I have had a lot of arguments over the last couple of weeks about distraction. He thinks that A-Rod can be a distraction on the Yankees with all the media attention. I go, you know, professional athletes are about as selfish as they come. I think that if David Cohn's on the mound and there was just 300 people in the locker room wanting to talk about A-Rod, you're thinking about executing a pitch. If somebody's in the batter's box, they're not being distracted by A-Rod. Am I wrong? Or, I mean, could this be a distraction to how they perform on the field?
Well, there's no doubt that just the whole circus surrounding Alex is going to be a distraction, but in some ways that can help. Sometimes guys who don't like talking to the media, and certainly back in the 90s, I know guys like Tino Martinez and Paul O'Neill were happy when I would talk to the media, or if there was somebody that was a team spokesman. Certainly that's a better formula if you have somebody like that. But with Alex's situation, it will be a distraction. It will be a bit of a circus, but in some ways, the other guys can kind of hide under the radar a little bit, so to speak. And I think the key is can Alex still play? Can Alex still swing the bat? Can he be productive? And if he can, then some of those distractions will go away to a certain extent. Although every road trip this year the Yankees go on, there's going to be a lot of people who, want to rubberneck Alex Rodriguez. They want to see what's going on. They want to see, and voice their opinions. And certainly bench jockeying and some of the cat calls he's going to hear and some of the signs that are going to be seen in the stadiums around the country are certainly going to be interesting to see. But I tell you what, you can't take your eyes off of it. Everybody wants to know, can he still play? What's going to happen in spring training? Will he finally do a press conference? I mean, there's a whole host of issues that everybody really wants to know about.
Were you okay with the letter, or would you have liked to see him stand up at a podium and field questions on the issue?
Well, I think eventually he's going to have to stand on the podium and field questions. At some point, he's going to have to face the music. I have no problem with the letter. Yeah, I think probably it's a way to get the ball rolling. It's a way to start this process for Alex to begin to clear the air. But in some ways, there's nothing he can say, there's nothing he can do that will ever satisfy everybody's curiosity. And, I think if he can sort of get through it and still be somewhat forthright and still answer some of the questions, that will go a long way to help him along the process. But I certainly don't expect him to get on the witness stand and field questions as if he were in a courtroom. And, that's going to be a tough one for him to deal with. So he's going to try to control it as it goes. He probably should. But I still say at some point he will have to answer some real tough questions from some real tough writers.
What's your gut feeling on how he performs this year? Do you think he will be able to perform?
I think the fact that they're just counting on him just to swing the bat helps a lot. I don't know that you could expect him to play 130 games at third base at this point with his hip surgeries that he's had. But I certainly think as a DH, with minimal exposure to his mobility or to the hip injuries he's had, I think he could probably still swing the bat. Alex has always been a natural. Put the steroid situation over on the back burner. As far as Alex Rodriguez and swinging the bat, he's always been able to do that. He's never been an all-power guy. He's always been a high-average guy. He's always been a really good hitter that could hit for power. So I still think you need to find out if he can swing the bat. The fact that he can DH is going to help him a lot this year, I think.
Now, David, did you know the letter made us find out that we found this out that they don't teach script or cursive writing in school anymore? So how will kids sign their name?
That's very interesting. Kind of a lost art, I guess, in the computer age nowadays. Yeah, that's shocking to me. But yeah, I was impressed that he actually gave an effort to write cursive. I don't know that I could do that right now. So regardless of handwriting experts or who wants to read into what, whether he loops his A's too much or whatnot, it tells you something about his personality. I don't really know, but I thought it was pretty impressive that he tried to write cursive.